We spend our whole lives naming things, but have you ever really stopped to think about what that means? Today, we're going to dig into a pretty profound idea from the 13th century from the philosopher Saint Bonaventure. For him, naming something wasn't just about putting a label on it, it was about understanding reality itself.
It's that classic question, isn't it? For most of us, a name is just a convenience, a tag. You know, dog, tree, rock. They're just sounds we all agree to use for certain objects. But what if a name was something much, much deeper than that?
And this is where St. Bonaventure just completely flips the script. He argued that a name isn't just some random human invention. To truly name something, well, that means you've grasped its fundamental reality, its very essence, and you're expressing it. It's a huge shift in thinking, and it's built on a serious foundation. So to really get our heads around what Bonaventure is saying, we have to start where he did. And that means we have to talk about metaphysics. This isn't just a conversation about language, it's about the very nature of being. Metaphysics asks the biggest questions out there. What does it actually mean to be? What is a thing's true core nature? For Bonaventure, a name is plugged directly into these questions. A real name isn't arbitrary. It's a statement about a thing's actual place in the order of reality. Okay, so Bonaventure actually breaks the act of naming down into three key parts. It all starts with the significatio. That's the thing itself, in all its reality. Then you have the vox. That's the word, the sound you make or the letters you write. And finally, there's the ratio innodescendi, which is the whole mental process of how we come to know the thing. And for Bonaventure, the order here is absolutely critical. Reality comes first. Our words and our understanding have to line up with it, not the other way around. And to help us unpack all this, we're going to use a really helpful framework from the research of Joshua Lee Huang. He does a fantastic job of laying out Bonaventure's thought into two distinct but totally connected dimensions. And here they are, the two sides of the coin. On one hand, you've got the Aristotelian dimension. It's logical, it's analytical, it looks at a creature to define it and put it in the right category. But then you have the Platonic dimension. This one's more symbolic. It looks through the creature to see what it's pointing to. For Bonaventure, a true name does both of these things at the same time. All right, let's dive into that first dimension. This is the part of naming we're probably most familiar with, the whole business of putting things into their proper boxes, so to speak. This is a classic philosophical example, and it makes the point perfectly. The name rational animal isn't just some tag we stick on a human being. It's a definition. It places us in the broader category or genus of animal, but it separates us out by our specific difference, which is being rational. The name actually captures a metaphysical truth about what we are. For Bonaventure, this is the essential first step, understanding what a thing is. But understanding a thing's definition is only half the story. The second dimension takes us from the what to the why. And it's all about learning to see the world with a whole different kind of vision. This is such a powerful way to think about it. For Bonaventure, creation isn't just a random pile of objects. It's a text, and it's filled with meaning. Every single creature, from a star down to a stone, is like a word written by God, a word that expresses something about its author. So to name a creature correctly is to learn how to read that word. Bonaventure gets very specific about these signs. The most basic kind is what he calls a vestige. The word comes from the Latin for footprint, and that's the perfect image. Every created thing, a plant, a mineral, you name it, is like a footprint left behind by the creator. It carries the mark of its cause. But for rational creatures, like us, there's an even higher level of meaning. We aren't just footprints, we are images. And why is that? It's because we have these incredible powers of memory, intellect, and will. We can consciously reflect our creator. We don't just point to God, we can actually know and love God. And that's a massive distinction. So how do these two dimensions, the categorizing and the seeing aright, actually come together in practice? Well, for Bonaventure, the perfect model, the person who lived this out perfectly, was his spiritual father, Saint Francis of Assisi. Now, on the surface, this might just sound like really beautiful, poetic language, but for Bonaventure, this was an act of incredible metaphysical insight. Saint Francis wasn't just being sentimental, he was naming things according to their deepest, truest reality. So think about it. When Francis called the wolf brother or the moon sister, he was doing everything we've just talked about. He was categorizing them as fellow creatures, all under one father. And he was seeing them aright, recognizing them as signs that all point back to God. He understood that every name expresses a relationship to God and a relationship to everything else in creation. Now, this brings us to a really important dose of humility in Bonaventure's thinking. Since our minds are limited and our understanding is flawed, we can never, ever fully grasp the complete reality of any creature. The best we can do when we name something is what he calls a halfway account, a kind of half-full understanding.
So ultimately, there's only one being who knows the complete perfect name for a flower or a star or a person, and that's the one who made them. God's knowledge isn't partial like ours. It's complete. So only God knows the true name that perfectly expresses what a thing is and its place in the cosmos.
And that's really the beautiful takeaway here. For Saint Bonaventure, naming isn't just this simple, mundane act of labeling things. It's an intellectual discipline. It's a spiritual discipline. It's an attempt to see the world as it really is, to recognize the essence and the purpose of every single thing, and in doing that, to trace everything back to its source. It is, quite literally, a journey of the mind into God.